All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Next Dev, the show for developers by developers. It's me, Dan Guswin, accompanied by my friend.
Ryan Vogel. And today we have a very special guest. We have Nate McGrady from X. How you doing, Nate?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
So today we're gonna kind of dive into your story of which is definitely not a weird one, but definitely a unique one in nature of how you got into tech and how you got to working for X. So, if you will, go ahead and how'd you get started with tech and what's your story?
Yeah, so I should say that I did not want to be a software engineer. Um, I didn't write my first line of code until I was like 18. So I grew up in a very small town in rural Minnesota, middle of nowhere. And my plan in life was to join the military, and I did. But my job that I tried to join was as a Navy SEAL. That's what I wanted to do. Um, I eventually went and found out I was like medically disqualified, and they switched me into a different job, which was in cybersecurity. So I kind of like randomly just selected it and ended up learning a lot of things that I know now from that job in the military. So that's kind of like how I started. That's how I got into it.
Right, so you had no prior like computing or code type
No,
experience at all?
no, like I had a computer, but I didn't know anything about software engineering. I didn't know that Linux was a thing. I didn't even know it existed. Um, but when I got to my training in the military, they taught me basically everything I needed to know. Um, it was kind of like my last resort to join the military because I barely graduated high school. I was like a 2.3 GPA, like a C D student. Um, and so I wasn't going to get accepted into any of the colleges that I applied to. I think I sent my ACT to like Harvard and Yale and all those people. But I think I got like an 18 because I fell asleep during the writing portion. Um, so yeah, I just like I wasn't a very great student, very like academic dude. Um, but that like I quickly had to like shift once I got to my technical training because it was a super like intense, very difficult training.
And that was with the Navy, you said, right?
Yeah, so when I joined the Navy, I attended the Joint Cyber Analysis course, which is this like military course where they get people from all branches, and it's like 6 months long, 8 hours a day, and they just teach you like 2 weeks at a time. They'll teach you topics. So like it'll be 2 weeks learning like discrete structures, and then like 2 weeks learning hardware, 2 weeks learning intro to programming, and at the end of these 2 week like training sessions, there's a test, and if you fail, you're out. Like you're kicked out. And so some of those people got kicked out of the military. Um, I think like if you got one failure, they'd let you roll back into a different class, and then if you failed out again, you were completely out. So like my class started with 22, and I think we graduated with like 10 or 11. Um,
Wow. Wow. So it's
yeah,
like progressive like elimination type thing. Wow, that is
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, exactly. It was very hard, and but I learned a lot of really cool things. Like I learned that's where I wrote my first lines of code. That was like C++, and then we got into like ethical hacking. I learned how to hack people. I learned how to respond to getting hacked, and then I did that in the Navy for about 6 years. I worked in cyber defense.
That's cool. That's wow.
Right on. Can you tell us a little bit about why Navy? Why was this your goal?
Yeah, yeah. So I picked the Navy because I wanted to be a SEAL. Like that was my goal. I was like, I'm gonna be a Navy SEAL. This is what I want to do. Um, and then I quickly, well, after I got medically disqualified, I was like, okay, I need to do something else. And I was already in the Navy, so I was like, all right, I just got to keep going. So I did that for 6 years before I interviewed and left.
Interesting. So, once you got out of Joint Cyber Analysis course. How do you call the acronym of that? Is that J JCAC?
Yeah, we say JCAC. Yeah.
JCAC.
Uh, I think there's been probably a good amount of people who've graduated it now. It's a pretty popular course. I hope it's still really difficult, but yeah, we call it JCAC. Anybody who knows it, like if you know what it is, you know what it is, kind of thing. Yeah.
Gotcha. So after JCAC, so you worked in cyber defense,
Yep.
and where'd you go from there?
Yeah. So my first duty station was in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. I was stationed in Pearl Harbor for 3 years. Um, that was really cool. I got to do some cool deployments. Went overseas a couple times, and then I came back and I was stationed in Maryland at Fort Meade. And I was there for 2 years as well, doing cyber defense, mostly training cyber defense analysts.
That's cool. Were you now? I know it was Navy, but were you mostly like on land or doing like stuff
Yeah,
on boats and stuff like that? Because managing a network on land is hard enough. I can't even imagine having to do that stuff on a boat.
yeah. As you can imagine, you have to roll a lot of Cat 6 to reach the ships. That was a joke. I think my job, the kind of work that I did, wasn't really aligned with the Navy at all. I didn't actually work for the Navy. I worked for like the Department of Defense, technically. Um, so yeah, I never went on any boats. I went on like one ship, like one time I toured it, and I was like, this is terrible. I never want to be on a boat, and so I never was. I was on land in a cushy office, you know, super chill for a military job for sure.
What was the longest you've spent in the sea?
Oh, I think it was probably that boat, like that tour that I did of someone's boat, which was like 30 minutes, if you count that. Um, when I did a deployment, I would fly, like I would fly in a regular commercial flight for a couple weeks at a time, and then I'd fly back.
That's really
Yeah.
cool. So obviously, you were a position of a cyber warfare technician. Is that correct? Was that the
Yeah.
official title, or
Yeah.
like?
So I was technically a cryptologic technician, and then as I like phased out of the military, it got changed to cyber warfare technician, which sounds really cool. Like it sounds cool to say that you're a cyber warfare technician, and that was like my official title. Technically, when I separated from the military, was a cyber warfare technician second class. Yeah,
Holy cow! Sounds like you got like the massive like robot things from the
it
movie.
sounds
I can't remember
it,
the name of.
it sounds a lot cooler than my current position, which is just like senior engineer.
Need to get that honorary cyber warfare technician.
Yeah,
Got to go to the
exactly.
grave with that one.
Yeah,
So you were a cyber warfare technician, and now you're at X. So
yeah.
how did that happen?
It was pretty interesting. I interviewed at Twitter in like August or no, July of 2022. Um, I applied as a joke. I remember seeing the posting and I was like, I'm gonna apply for Twitter. There's no way these guys are gonna call me back. Um, and randomly they did. They set up an interview. Um, and then that led to another interview and so on and so forth. And I eventually received an offer in like August. So it was like right around my 24th birthday. Um, I think it was a couple weeks after my 24th birthday. And I received this offer to be a senior security engineer at Twitter. But I was still in the military at the time. I couldn't start until November. So I accept the offer. And then like as I'm waiting, I start hearing all this stuff in the news about like, oh, by the way, Twitter might get sold. Um, and fun fact that did happen for those of you who haven't been keeping up. Um, so that was really interesting. I started about 2 weeks after the acquisition. So like Elon comes in, buys a company, and then like through all that chaos, I'm like onboarding, and joining the company, which is pretty interesting.
What was the interview process like?
For me, I can't remember too much. I think it was like 4 or 5 rounds. And it was really fun. I've interviewed at a lot of like cool companies. And I think still to this day, it's the most fun interview process I've ever had. Um, it was like an initial phone screen with a recruiter, and then the second interview was a interview with the hiring manager, and she was super nice and very, very friendly. Um, and that was like asking me kind of like your generic behavioral questions, but then also like random things like explain DNS or stuff like that, like generic high level security questions. She pushed me through to the next round, and then I had like 3 or 4 what are they called? Like technical screenings. So it was like 3 or 4 hour long interviews with like 2 or 3 people, and that asked like technical or behavioral questions.
That's
Right
cool.
on.
Yeah, that's super cool. So, and you said you were there during like the transition from like Twitter to X. What were some of the biggest thing?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that's got to be so hectic. Like you're literally walking in. It's like that one meme of like the guy walking down the steps of the pirate ship as it's like being blown to bits.
Yeah.
It's like I
Yeah.
can only imagine it's got to be like that because everything's changing and evolving and moving. So like, what was that like?
Yeah, I remember because the acquisition happened, I think in October, August. What comes before November? October, right? So I think it's like the last few days of October. It gets sold, and I'm sitting there like panicking because I hear like, oh, all these employees are being laid off, and I'm like, I just accepted this job offer. I'm in the military. Like, I already told the military I'm leaving, so like, I'm really like, counting on this. And so I was messaging my recruiter over and over and over, and like my hiring manager, I was like, "Hey, do I still have a job?" And they kept on like reassuring me. They're like, "Oh yeah, you have a job," which was chill. But by the time I started, which was like November 14th, I think like that same day was the day all the employees got that email that was like, "Hey, do you want to stay here?" Um, so I was basically offered like 3 months of pay to leave on my like second week at the company. Um, and I said no. They had to call me because I didn't have a work laptop yet, so I didn't really have my email set up. So like an HR person had to like call me on the phone and be like, "Hey, do you want to stay at the company?" And I was like, yeah, why not?"
That's funny.
Yeah.
You didn't get invited to one of those interviews with Elon with code reviews and stuff, did you?
No. Well, I would have been too new to the company like when all that happened. And I was remote. I still am remote, but I was remote working in like the DC area. But I do know that they had to like approve everybody who was remote. I heard some people say that like Elon was like personally approving those. I have no idea if that's like actually what happened, but um, yeah, I think I had to get approval for my job to like stay, and then I had to get approval to stay remote. And then I moved to Minnesota, and so I had to get approval for that as well to stay being remote.
I
Yeah.
see. So you talked a bit about the onboarding process. Can you share a bit what it was like? Like what entails the onboarding process? How long does it last at X?
Well, I mine was very different because I started with like I don't know, maybe 30 people who all like started around the same time, and that was like I think we were all like part of the last wave of new hires for a while. Um, but the team that did onboarding was laid off, so like um, they basically like sent me a laptop and then just said get to work. That's kind of like what I had to do because there's nobody to like onboard me. They're like, here's how you find the docs. Come to this like internal site and search, and then answer your own problems, that kind of thing. So it was definitely like teach yourself how to swim.
Wow, how much was it of like a mess, like in your opinion? Obviously don't share anything you can't, but like was it like when you got there when looking at the docs was it like messy or
Well, there's a lot. I mean, there's still a lot. Like the amount of information, the amount of code, the amount of like documentation is just absurd. Like it's such a massive company that's been around for so long. Um, that it's just like it was super like overwhelming. But like the actual company itself was really chill. It's always been like super chill. Um, at least like compared to what most people think. I remember I was telling my friends and family, I was like, "Oh, I accepted a job at Twitter," and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, that's gonna be like, I heard it's hardcore. Are you gonna be okay?" And I was like, "I'm literally in the military right now. Like, I'm in the like." They say it's hardcore because I have to work 8 hours a day. I'm like, please let me only work 8 hours a day.
like
Um, Yeah, so it's really chill. It's been really cool. Like it wasn't very hectic. My team that I was a part of, like everyone was great, brilliant at what they do, and like very organized. So I didn't think it was very hectic at all.
That's
So, to give a bit of background to the listeners, during the layoffs, about 80% of the workforce at Twitter was let go. And Nate was one of the lucky ones to stay. Um, did you actually? So, you said the ones who were supposed to onboard you were let go. Like, how senior were people that were let go? I'm just curious what the process was.
I don't know because like I when I showed up, it was after some of it had already happened, and like some of it was in the process of happening, and I was remote. So like I didn't know anybody at the company. I had no context of how many people there actually were to begin with. Um and like because I was remote and like I was approved to like keep working there, like I was so separated from any and everything that was happening. It was just like a couple of months where they'd be like, oh, by the way, all these people got laid off, and I was like, I've never heard of any of those people or any of those departments. Like I don't know what anything is.
you're
So
like, oh no, man,
yeah.
dang it.
Yeah,
Ah,
that I never worked at Twitter 1.0, so that like um I hear people tell me about it and it sounds incredible if you're like cool with just like doing nothing. It seems like it was a really like chill place to work. Um but like I don't have anything to compare it to, so like I'm not upset about like my current work environment because it's all I know. And I think it's like pretty cushy. So
right. Yeah, definitely sounds pretty cool. So, as a you said it was a senior security engineer role.
yeah.
What were some of your stuff with that you did? Any cool stories?
Um Yeah, I was a senior security engineer on the detection and response team. So that's like handling threat prevention, detection and response when it comes to like the actual platform. Um, Not necessarily like if an account gets hacked. I don't really care about that. It's more like if like X gets hacked, you know, or at the time if Twitter got hacked. That's more like what my team would respond to, or write detections for and to test and stuff. Um, I think like all of the stuff that I worked on, I wouldn't be able to talk about. Um, but I will say like it's a really secure environment. Like the engineers, the security engineers that there are so good, and were so good that like it's really low volume. Like the amount of like security events and stuff.
Nice. You're locked in. You're just
Yeah.
completely
They
locked
were
in.
locked in. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's cool. So, after the senior security engineer, you transitioned to live stream to live out your dreams as a Twitch live stream content creator.
Yeah. Yeah, I streamed a lot when I was in the military. Like I made affiliate. So I had like 200 hours streamed or something. Like enough to like understand what the process was and like what the product is. Um and I remember when I was first learning how to do like live streaming, I'd go to YouTube and I'd be like, how to grow on Twitch, like how to grow as a live streamer. And all the videos are like, oh, you need to grow on Twitter. And then every time you go live, tell people on your Twitter and have them like come over. Um, and I was like, that's kind of silly. Like, why don't I just go live on Twitter? Like, if you get enough people following, instead of like trying to redirect them, why don't you just like go live on Twitter?
Right.
Um, but that wasn't really a thing. And so like like I messaged the people who worked on live and I was like, hey, you should really like focus on user like live streams. Like the live product was very brand focused. Like Pepsi's doing a live stream, you know, Tesla's doing a live stream. Like these really big companies would do a live stream, but it wasn't like regular people, like actual users,
Right. Like
like
nobody could
Twitch streamers.
access it. I think
Yeah,
because when was that, like, what, a two time has moved so weird. Was that like a year or so ago before it like didn't
yeah,
exist?
yeah. Like, I mean, it existed, but it just wasn't being used, and it wasn't marketed towards like users, or like non brand creators. You know, like regular people.
Right.
Um, and so I was like, hey, we should do this. Like, we should try to focus on user generated content. Like, let's focus on getting regular streamers, like regular people, to go live on X. Um, and eventually I would just like work nights and weekends on that while working my 9 to 5 as a security engineer. Um, and then it, like eventually got to a point where like I was in meetings with Elon talking about the product and like pitching ideas. And I was like, he'd say something like, "Oh, that's cool." And I'd be like, "Okay, cool. Can we get someone to work on it?" And then they'd be like, "You're the one who's going to work on it." Um, and that's kind of like how it went. I would work on things, and eventually it got to a point where my responsibilities with live were like exceeding my responsibilities on security engineering. I felt like I could bring more value to the company with like the live work I was doing. Um, so I asked them, I was like, "Hey, can I switch over and like work on live features full time?" And they said, "Yeah." They said, "Sure, come do it." And that's what I've been doing ever since.
It sounds awesome. I honestly was under impression that it was Elon's idea, but I understand many people came forward with a suggestion of focusing on consumer streaming.
Yeah, it. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. I definitely said stuff about it like before I think Elon went live. Because I went live back when like you had to use like Restream to go live. You couldn't even do it yourself. So this was like almost 2 years ago now. Um, but yeah, I think originally what I did is I made a mock-up in Xcode for like an iPad assistant tool, like that would show your metrics and chat and stuff. Um, that's how I got into my first meeting with like Elon, and then they were like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then you guys, I don't remember exactly how it went, but they're like, "Oh, okay, this like product's cool. Like, are you gonna build it?" And I was like, Sure." But then eventually, like a week later, I was like, "This is stupid. Like, let's build something else." And then we started working on chat, adding chat to web because on web at the time, you couldn't access chat; it just didn't exist. So I was like, "Oh, that's like a big issue because like 50%, over 50% of Twitch viewers are on desktop. So like if we want people to like participate in live streams on desktop, we should probably have a chat." So I worked on that first version and I've been working on that ever since.
And I feel like that, like the chat aspect in and of itself, on any platform, I'm more likely to be engaged and like stay on the platform if it's like I can interact with like a chat interface. So it's like, because if I'm like just have like a screen up and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm watching this, nah, I can kind of close it. But if it's like I'm interacting with the creator and stuff like that, I think that's like a lot bigger of a draw.
Yeah, yeah. I went to TwitchCon and I met a lot of like really cool creators. And I think like the main takeaway I had was that Twitch isn't a like video app. It's like a chat app that has video. That's really what it is. Like there are some of the biggest creators in the world could have a blank screen and still be popping off. Because it's about the chat. Um, and like with that knowledge, like I brought it back to the team and I was like, "Hey, we need to figure out chat. We need to make it like more engaging." I think you can probably, if you search for it, you can find what the first version of chat looked like. It was pretty rough. It's very different than what it looks like now. I worked on like the current version on web, and kind of like the current design of it. Um,
I'm looking.
but yeah,
I'm trying to find that right now.
if yeah, it's pretty, hopefully you don't, because it was pretty bad. Like it was just a username, like it was just your handle in text followed by like a random color from our like color theme book.
Is this it? Hold on. Let me share my screen. I think I might have found it. I don't know. This is probably wrong, but
We'll see. We can talk about whatever yeah, I
Is
look
that
at
it?
that screenshot. Look at that screenshot. Pull it up. Jamie, pull that up. Pull it up, Jamie. Wait, quick arc. Crazy photo off the rip.
Oh my gosh, the ads.
The original photo isn't even on there. Hold on.
All right.
Just open the original image. Just copy image address.
Where'd it go?
Where'd it go?
Am I going
Am I
crazy?
going crazy?
Wait, scroll up. It's right there.
Oh,
There it is. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so I worked on this.
Oh no way!
Yeah, it's your boy.
That's so funny.
So this was from our like initial announcement that it released, and if you look at like what it looks like now, compared to that, it's very different. I didn't actually work on the technical side of it because I hadn't really done like software engineering at that time.
Yeah, that looks a lot better.
Yeah, the like it's fine. The problem is that it doesn't align with the branding of the company at all. Like it looks like it doesn't belong on the site when you compare it to the rest of like the design and branding, which is actually a really like difficult hurdle. Everything with the design, I would talk to our designers. I'd be like, hey, it'd be really cool if we can do this or that. But the like frequently I'd get pushback, and it's like, we got to make sure it aligns with everything. And we eventually settled on the current implementation. But yeah, that's me. That's your boy.
That's so
So
funny.
funny.
What
Yeah.
season
What
is
season
this?
is
Is
this?
this hold on? Greasy
Greasy
Grip. Hold
Grip,
on, I can do
I
this.
That's
It's
probably
probably somewhere in chapter 2. I'd have to guess based off the UI.
Yeah. But I mean, even that screen where you're watching the broadcast is like completely different now.
What was this
Yeah.
emoji? The fire emoji. What was that?
Trends, maybe.
Interesting.
Trending. Yeah. Yeah, but now there's so much more. Like we've added a lot of features to this, and there's like the actual live screen that I made, and like the live doc, which is also really cool.
Right, like the picture-in-picture
thing
is
pretty nice because then you can watch a live stream and doom scroll
at the same time, which is like
that's what I said. Like the thing where you just sent a message in chat to like see what it looks like. I built that. And like my main thing I was saying when like we did it, I was like, it's the Subway Surfers method. Like we need to have people watching Subway Surfers while like scrolling their timeline, but instead of Subway Surfers, it's a live stream. Like users come to the platform because they want to scroll the timeline, and we can't like make them decide between that and like a live stream. We should give them both. And that's what we've done with that doc. And I've been using it for a long time, and I love it. But I'm obviously extremely biased.
No, but I think it's good. I do think we need a couple more grok icons all over the screen because
bro, one more grok icon, bro, please.
That's
please,
all
bro.
we need. I just need to be able to access it a little bit faster because moving the mouse too much, I don't think it's worth it.
I think I could work on a feature where we just like activate your mic at all times, so then you can say, "Hey, grok."
That's awesome, dude.
I'm kidding. I wouldn't. But like, I think it would be cool to work grok into live chat. So then you could do like a /grok followed by like a question or something. Or like /grok, like what happened. And then it could like summarize the stream so far. Stuff like that would be cool.
Like catch me up or
very
something.
Cool. Sounds
like
very cool.
Essentially integrate grok as a chatbot within chat.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because I had that as a thought for this stream because I was like, I feel like AI isn't implemented into like the live streams that good because you could have based off of chat like every minute or something like that have AI just scrape the past like 100 messages in chat and then be like based off of this make a animation or choose one of these animations to portray the mood in chat. I'm like, I feel like that type of level of integration would be really, really cool, especially with like grok because it's integrated onto the actual platform.
Yeah, and animation might be tricky, but like a simpler like V1 would be like an emoji, like which emoji best represents like the current state of the stream or the current state of like chat, or describe the stream using emojis. Like is much easier.
That'd be so funny. You're just scrolling on X and then like you see some guy like live streaming, just like it's like the crying emoji all over the place. It's like got 2 viewers and it's like, dang, bro, that's rough.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, that's super cool. And I'm gonna be completely honest. Up until just about before we started the show officially, I thought X Spaces and X Livestream were the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like a very common like thing. You can do video spaces, right? Like I could start a space right now with video. And that's something like we've talked about at the company as well. It's like we have these 2 products that are very similar. How do they stand out? Like how do they differentiate from each other? And my philosophy with it is that like a live stream is like a performance. I think of it as like a form of performance art. Versus like a spaces is like a group chat conversation type thing. If I'm going to do a live stream, my intention is that it's going to be me and my chat, and like I'm going to be carrying the load. Like I'm going to be carrying the weight of providing entertainment for this entire thing. But if I'm doing a space, like my intention is I'm going to have like other people come up and have like this conversation. So
Yeah, I think
That's
that
kind of like how I think about it.
I think that makes sense because all the spaces I've been on, it's been like a lot more informal, just like yapping rather than
Yeah.
like a presentation type thing.
Yeah, exactly. Or like if someone wants to do like, game streaming, which is probably like the most common. It definitely is the most common kind of streaming. It's not people who are like playing video games and they want to like also talk to their viewers. Like, I'm sure there's some people, but like someone who has like thousands and thousands of viewers doesn't want to also like be dealing with like bringing up speakers and like handling what people are going to be saying over their stream. Um, it's just like a comedian doesn't want to have like hecklers, like they have like a whole thing, they have like a shtick, they have a performance that they want to go through. Um, so that's how I differentiate them. That said, I did like beta test something the other day where like I was doing a live stream, or I was doing a video space, and I was also live streaming like my same video broadcast to Twitch and YouTube and like to X at the same time. And so like people in the space would see the video content and like stuff I was doing, but people on all the other platforms would hear the other speakers in the space as they came up. So like on Twitch, they would hear the people who are coming up in the space and speaking, but also seeing the video content.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Well, I can say that hearing you talk about these problems, it makes a lot of sense to me how you ended up in product engineering. It's all about empathizing with the end user, understanding the problems they're experiencing, and building for those problems. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I am a prolific user of the product as well. I probably go live. I can tell you, I do go live more than any other ex-employee by like a considerable amount. Second would probably be Elon.
I think a
But
close third would probably be Zach. I have to say because maybe not live, but I've
maybe
seen
Yapseen would pass him.
True.
It'd probably be Yapseen and then Zach, if we have to be honest. But because I use it, like it's the best feedback loop. Like I could be doing a live stream and then people pop into chat and they'd be like, hey, this part of what I'm looking at right now, it's not good. And I can be like, okay, write it down in my notebook over there on my desk. And then I fix it, So that's really cool. It's really cool to like work on something and then have your users like basically give you feedback in real time while using that product. I don't know if there's any other product where you can really do that.
Hot fixes.
Unless like you work at Slack and then you have your users send you messages on Slack, or maybe Discord, right? Like Discord is a product where you could join Discord's Discord and give them feedback. But other than that, I don't really know.
Yeah,
like, where else you could do that.
I think Discord might be like the biggest. Well, actually no. I think X would be the biggest because it's like you're using X on X. That's funny.
Yeah,
because it's like live hot fixes.
Yeah, it's like the exhibit meme where it's like, yo, dog, I heard you like blank. So I put blank in your blank so you can blank while you blank. So it's like, yeah, I heard you like X. So I put X in your X. You can, yeah. But yeah, I definitely am more like product minded, I like to think. I'm not a super good software engineer. So I definitely try to depend on my ability to like prioritize based on what users actually want, what's actually going to make the product better versus like just trying to optimize things or like make things run better or do things that only like other developers will be, oh, that's cool.
Right. Now the $1 million question is when you're developing, doing software stuff like that, because you've a pretty dense with JCAC and everything. You have a pretty dense background of like actual fundamentals of software engineering. Do you use like a heavy amount of AI when you code, or is it more vanilla, or like what's the balance?
Zach was the one who convinced me to like. Well, my camera just got like messed up. Zach was the one who convinced me to.
It's
funky.
funky.
On stream it's looking weird.
It's funky.